by Austin Armstrong, #1 best time seller. And y'all, he is probably one of the leading voices in AI today. He has had billions of views with his content, and he has utilized AI to get him from the place of struggling content creator to now a leading voice. And so, Austin, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, Christine, it's truly an honor. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited to have an amazing conversation with you, and I just hope that it helps people.
Me too. Me too. I just, as I was doing a little bit of digging into your most recent book, Virality, that's out right now on ebook, but it's officially coming out hard copy on December 1st. Woohoo! I would love to, we're going to address some problems today around obviously people who need to start using AI, those who are using it currently, and how to really leverage it further. But then also, what does it look like to be radically responsible with this tool, with also the content we're putting out there? And so before we dive into all three of those, Austin, who are you and how did you, what was your transition, your transformation story?
Oh, I'm just a nerd that found out something that he liked to do and kind of never stopped doing it. The real answer is I stumbled into social media marketing about 21 years ago when I was 14 years old on MySpace. And that's a big throwback there. But I stumbled into these communities of other people that were growing their following, and it wasn't even about money at that point. It was, I think, just about validation, the wanting to be seen somewhere. There were some things going on in my life at the time. And so I took to the online world to seek validation. And I was really, I got immersed in that world. Had hundreds of thousands of followers on MySpace, used it to end up developing multiple streams of income, which is such a impactful time in my life. You're so young that your brain hasn't fully developed yet, and this is such an impactful time. And yeah. I wish that, so there was a period after MySpace disappeared where I was still on social media, but nobody told us that this was a career path. Because it was so early at that time. So there was a couple year period where I wasn't doing a whole lot in the space until about 12 years ago when I moved to, cross country to California. And that's where my professional career really started in video marketing and social media, and really led me to where I am today. One of the most impactful things that happened about that move is I stumbled into an internship at a video marketing agency that specialized in the behavioral health space. And I worked my way up from being an unpaid intern to a paid intern to a part-time employee to a full-time employee. My boss was a mentor to me, and we ended up becoming business partners. And it's been a whirlwind ever since. But it's just kind of a series of events that all sparked from MySpace and just consistency over time.
I actually love when I said, how did you stumble into this? You gave kind of a cavalier statement, but I actually think that there's a lot of truth to it. You said you found something you liked and you never stopped. Austin, I think that a lot of times we actually set out to pursue something that is dictated by others for us, rather than truly knowing, I actually love this. This is life-giving or brings me joy, or to your point, I feel seen. Each one of us, at our core, we're wanting to be seen. And often it's what happens in our personal life. You said you were going through some things at the time when you started leaning into MySpace. How much, if we were to actually look for what's going on in our personal life, what are our real problems? How can we solve for it? And then where is there potential revenue opportunity in that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm curious, did you receive pushback? I know that at the time, social media wasn't really a career, but what was that in terms of everyone around you kind of watching you gain all this traction and really pursue the solution to your own problem? But what was the reaction among your friends and family to that?
Oh, they hated it. Everybody hated it. It was funny. I was connected with all of my friends from high school and middle school, and I started posting just a ton in to kind of throw back. So like there wasn't a feed really as we know a feed today on like Facebook
Mm,
or TikTok, etc. There was a separate message board area kind of where you do a post and it stacks all the posts, a secondary area. And when I was in the middle of all of this, was just posting a ton of comment, basically spamming everybody's message board area. And like so many of like I got flack at school. People were like, this is so annoying, dude. I hate this. Stop it." Like everybody unfollowed me, unconnected with my friends. Um
wow.
but it was okay because I had my own online community. We all connected in AOL Instant Messenger AIM group chats. That's
I
where we hang out. Yeah. And then, on the family side of things, my mom thought, it was illegal, what I was doing. She didn't understand it at all because I was getting, pretty big paychecks, in PayPal, and we kinda, like, faked our age, I don't we were
yeah.
definitely not 18. So we set up some things in order to just to get payments, and, I was promoting local bands and T-shirt companies. I was doing some sketchy email lead generation, if I'm being honest. There were some companies and individuals that would pay myself and people like us of just say this thing in exchange for an email. Like I remember specifically, it would be like enter your email to get Photoshop 5. And like Photoshop 5 was not out. It was just complete bait and switch. And I don't agree with that. I don't more like, but I didn't know any better. And they're just like, just post this thing and we'll give you $1 or $2 in email. And so I was able to get so much money that way. I partnered with
Mhm.
a friend, really, really brilliant friend that was a web developer and software engineer. Again, we're like 14, 15, 16 years old. And we built a software tool. It was called Get Ads, doesn't exist anymore, that helped other people grow their following on MySpace as well. And so I had like multiple streams of income as a 14, 15, 16 year old. It's how I bought my
Wow.
first car. I was buying, big flat screen TVs for myself. Um, things I probably shouldn't have bought at the time. But I just kind of ignored all of that because I was having fun. I had my validation from my group of people that were doing the same thing that I was. And I think there's an important lesson there. You have to find your tribe and be okay with the fact that when you go against the normal path, like this really continued for me throughout like my career as well, because I don't have a college degree. That was and I was a terrible student because I'm a ADHD entrepreneur, and it took me a long time to realize that that's okay. You just need to
Yeah.
find your path. The traditional route. Um, uh, don't let that be a aspect of shame for you because you don't have an alma mater and you didn't graduate your from a prestigious school. That was a point of limiting belief for a long time, but it really stems back to that, just finding your tribe, finding your community of like-minded people, and um, just saying I don't care to that external hate.
Mm. That's so, so important. And really it's the external hate and you still had the external support. Like you had
Yeah,
the willingness to demarcate and effectively say, I'm going to have lovers and haters. And that's what a
yeah.
strong brand is. So you were effectively curating your own strong brand at 14, 15 years old because you had the tenacity. And Austin, how did you deal with losing all those friends during that time in high school? I mean, I know that you had your tribe, but how was that for you to lose those friends? At least on MySpace, how were they? So they defriended you on MySpace, defollowed you, but like, what was that like in person?
Yeah, I don't remember it being that bad. I just remember like comments, like several people saying this is so annoying, like knock it off. I hate you for this. But like I had
Mm,
my group of friends in person.
okay.
I was a nice enough, fun guy. Like it didn't really like impact me that negatively, from what I remember.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
With people who are kind of in that middle of the road where they're effectively needing to make the decision, am I going to
Yep.
keep leaning into this brand that will demarcate? And it's not
Yeah.
even creating something false. It's actually knowing what I love and pursuing what I love, even if I know I'll lose people along the way. What would you say to that aspiring entrepreneur?
I would rather have tried and failed than have not tried at all and wondered what if. When you
Mm,
put yourself out there and go after your goals, you're going to get people that try and pull you down because they didn't have the courage to try it themselves because they're stuck in their bubble. I see this all the time, like the last couple of years, just on Facebook, for instance, because Facebook pushed out professional mode about 3 years ago, and the organic reach that people are seeing on their personal profiles is massive. I have 2 million followers on my personal profile with all my embarrassing pictures from 17 years ago, all my friends and family that I'm connected with on there, and I made that conscious decision of sacrificing my friends and family for reach. I like to say, I post 90% business and marketing oriented content, and yeah, there's some family members and some friends that don't like it. I was already conditioned with this 20 years ago with MySpace, so like it wasn't a big transition. But if you're just going through this, know that yeah, you're going to isolate some people. There's going to be some people that don't like what you're doing because it reflects on their own ego that they feel stuck. They are not able to have the courage to do what you are doing, putting yourself out there. And that shouldn't impact you, even if it's close friends, even if it's close family. You have to understand where every individual person is at. Take their advice, listen to them, be empathetic, but ultimately you have to chase your dreams or you're going to live your whole life wondering what if. Don't live your life according to other people's opinions of you. Form your own opinion of yourself. Be your biggest cheerleader. Go after your goal. And a lot of the time, you will have massive supporters come out, friends, family that maybe weren't active with you or weren't engaging with your stuff and just sending you messages from time to time saying, I see you. I see what you're doing. It's inspiring. Thank you for putting yourself out there. It's lifting me up. And so for as many negative feedback as you get, you're going to get positive feedback too. And that's what you have to lean into.
Mm. For those listening, I would highly recommend. A friend of mine encouraged me to do this a year and a half ago, and I'm so grateful I've been doing this. He calls it flowers. Like, what are like the little notes people are giving you? Screenshot them and
Yeah.
save them. And I
Oh, I
am
love
so
that.
grateful. Me too. And it's been so encouraging, Austin, because there are days where maybe you're not necessarily even getting the hate messages, but you're like, "Ugh, is this even making a difference? Is this even making an impact?" And then you go back to a little arsenal of positive comments and then this is actually leans to a greater question of what is our why? And is our why compelling enough to then
Mm,
demarcate between our family and friends or even just haters? Maybe they're in business, but they just don't like what we're doing. If our why is
yeah.
compelling enough, it's enough fuel to keep us propelled forward with the blocks that present themselves along the way.
I could just completely agree with that statement. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm going to continue to do what I do, and I'm just going to help people along the way and ignore the haters.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So you have 2 million followers on Facebook, and your book,
Wow.
Virality, which is coming out December 1st. Can you talk a little bit? Can you share some sneak peek tips on what
Yeah.
people can be doing if they want to grow their followers and stay authentic and true to their brand? It's not just like those quick hacks to gain all the followers and then they're not actually viable. So can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is two parts. The first part of the book is a collection of 20 years of stories in marketing, lessons that I've learned, failures, and actionable takeaways from those failures. Betting on myself, seeing the long term vision. Anybody that's on a personal growth journey, the first part of the book is to motivate you. And then the second part is really just tactical strategies of finding your why, knowing who your target audience is, how to structure your content to make sure that it reaches, resonates, holds attention, and strategies to actually increase your engagement as well. And different areas throughout to, at the end of each chapter, you can mark down your own biggest takeaways, the next 3 steps that you're going to take, and then the timeline that you're going to give yourself to execute on those. Because if you don't give yourself timelines, life just gets in the way. I'll give you a quick example that I think will help a lot of people is a video framework that I call the START video framework that'll really help you know, qualify who you want to reach online and hold their attention and do it in a meaningful way that it's going to actually generate leads and sales and followers for you. And so first of all, you have to know who your target audience is. You have to understand why you want to be online. What is your goal? If you're just scattershotting different content ideas and you just want to get some more followers but you don't know why you want more followers, you just like the vanity metrics or whatever, that's short term. That's not sustainable. You will burn out. You don't have a clear purpose. So you just don't have a North Star that you're working towards. So you have to go in with purpose. And the thesis of this book is really, don't be a content creator, be an entrepreneur who creates content. And so you have to have that back end structure to know, like, what do I want to create content about? Who is the content for? What are the problems that they're dealing with? How can I really just help them and create actionable advice that leads to inbound? And so what the framework is that S in START stands for stop the scroll with a powerful opening hook. We live in a attention era and unlimited content where with the swipe of a thumb, there's a new video. If you haven't captured their attention in the first 2 seconds, 3 seconds tops, they're scrolling on to the next thing. So you have to come up with an opening hook that's going to be like the billboard for who you want to reach. Quick example of this, my top of funnel is for business owners and entrepreneurs. That's who I want to bring into my ecosystem. And so at the broadest level, I will do an opening hook like, these 5 websites feel illegal to know. Or if you stack these 3 websites together, your business is going to explode your competition, or something like that, where it's intriguing enough to be like, whoa, what are these websites? Are they actually illegal? No, of course not. It's just to like get the attention. So the S stands for stop the scroll with a powerful opening hook. The T stands for talk about a problem. So if that's associated with the opening hook that you just brought up. So you could say, if you're dealing with this problem over and over and over again, I get it. This is a common problem that my target audience, is dealing with right now. So you're cutting through the noise. You're qualifying your audience to continue paying attention. You've stopped them in their tracks. You've addressed a problem that they're personally dealing with. And then the A stands for align and build authority. So this is where you can briefly talk about yourself and shout your credentials or shout how you overcame that problem. Or how you've helped someone else overcome that problem. The R stands for resolve the problem. This is going to be the meat of your video. This is where you just give your best actionable information away for free. 3 tips to resolve that problem, or here's A to Z, everything that you need to do. One of the best pieces of marketing advice I ever got was to give your best information away for free. Sell them the implementation, the specification for their particular use case. All right. So the R is resolve, and the T is tell them what to do next, the call to action. So click the link in my bio to schedule a one-on-one free call with me so that we can get to the bottom of your problems together. Or send this to a friend that really needs to hear this right now because they're going through it. They're dealing with this problem. And if you just follow a framework like that, you're going to stack the odds in your favor. You're staying true to who you are. You're aligning with who you want to reach. You're qualifying the audience, and you're just building genuine connection through solving real problems over and over and over again. And it's a format that just holds attention and performs really well I've tested it tens of thousands of times myself, as well as in many, many different niches when I ran an agency for 12 years.
Love it. This is so, so, so good. So I want to start, we're going up to the S. One thing that really stood out to me is have your hook be like a billboard for who you want to reach. That's just
Yeah.
like, so think of the hook as a billboard. That means it's short. You know,
Mm-hmm.
billboards can only have a certain number of words in order for it to not be lost on the highway. And so if we're thinking something similar, you know, that's so good. And I've done traditional media buying. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that example of your hook should be like a billboard for who you want to reach. And then the T, I was writing an email campaign the other day, and a friend of mine shared how they used this opening phrase to a brand new cold list. And it said, I'm sick of it. That was the title. And then he went in and said, I'm sick of, and then listed all the problems. And so I love that angle of just really laying into the problem and really highlighting, like, I'm sick of it. Like this, tell them what the problem is. I'm sick of it. And also resonating with them on an emotional level, like saying I'm sick of it or something along those lines allows for the emotional resonance where they feel the empathy of what you're saying. Rather, because when it's empathy included, it preserves and staves off manipulation. And that's really, really important to do. And then with you saying align and authority, I love that you gave a couple of different elements there. You know, you can say how you solved the problem, which honestly, Austin, I'm curious your thoughts here. I think for so long it was because it was mainly B2C rather than person-to-person marketing. You know, we're seeing the rise of personal brands, and every single one of us needs to be thinking of our personal brand as our greatest asset. And so with that, there's a lot more that actually has stake in, have I solved this problem for me? What's my transformation? And I want to hear you talk a little bit about that, because yes, we should still have testimonies from our clients, but have we ourselves personally done it for us? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Immediately what comes to mind is when I started my marketing agency years ago, I hated sales. I hated cold calling, picking up the phone, and just dialing lists and getting rejected over and over again. And I went through training, like sales training programs and sales boot camps and stuff, the cold email, cold LinkedIn DMs. I hated doing that. That was such a problem that I was personally dealing with.
I hate it
I hate
too.
it. Oh, it's like power to you if you can do that. You're a special type of human that you can just pound the phones all day and get no, no, no. I can't do that, right? So I had to resolve that problem myself for my business. Otherwise, it was going to fail. And so my strategy for that was figuring out social media organically to create inbound. Because for me, the mental switch was, if I've already created content that resonates with who I'm trying to reach, by the time they're on a Zoom call, they've seen my video, I've resolved their problem, they clicked the link in my bio, they scheduled on my Calendly link, they showed up. That is a much different conversation. They've basically already been sold. I've already sold them in the content and the journey. It's mine to lose. And so just by creating content and everything that I just outlined in the start framework, I did. And it resulted in me growing a multi-7-figure agency, all on the back of organic content from, it was largely TikTok at the time, and then YouTube and Facebook and Instagram, and one platform after another started to generate more and more leads and speaking opportunities. And I liken the whole like strategy of that to, if I wanted to be the marketing agency that practiced what they preached. And the reason that you're on a call, it's like, hire, this might sound blunt, but I use this analogy of, if you're going to hire a personal trainer, who are you more likely to hire? Are you going to hire the out of shape person that's not taking care of themselves and not, doing anything, but they're just barking orders at you? Or are you going to hire the person that's in shape themselves, that's eating right, that you aspire to be like? That person. I'm going to hire that person. Maybe you don't. I don't know but I wanted to be that. I'm going to hire the person I aspire to be like. I'm not going to hire somebody that's in worse shape than I am. And so that was the thesis behind all of that. And so that's how I align with that. Of if I was doing a campaign of like, for agency owners, listen, I get it. I hated cold calling and getting rejected over and over again. I personally resolved that problem by figuring out content creation. Here's 5 things that you can do as an agency owner to get over that hurdle of just getting rejected over and over and over again, and attract people that actually want you without you having to do all of the work up front. If you just follow these steps, and you can contact me in my bio for a one-on-one call, and we can walk through a specific use case for you. And so like, that's kind of a rough overview of like following that framework of how I've
Yes.
personally overcome a real problem.
I love this. So, and one quick note, just for, I saw Randall said I did the cold approach in person sales, and he said yuck. So I think
It's
we're all on the
brutal.
same page.
Yeah.
Kudos to people who can do it. I'm so impressed. You know what, with that, I think it's interesting at the very beginning of the show, for those of you who are recently joining, y'all, I said, Austin, who are you and how did you get to where you are today? And he made a kind of a little comment where it was a little bit off the cuff, but he said something that was so resonant with me. He said, I found out what I like to do and I never stopped. You know, you didn't actually get off the rails and trying to like be good at sales. You're like, I don't like this. It's not life-giving. It actually is awful. I'm not going to
Yeah.
spend my energy there. So let me spend my energy what I do like doing. And
Yep.
so there's multiple ways to solve a problem if we allow ourselves to be creative and stay in our lane. And maybe there's supplementing it with outside help. Maybe at some point you hire someone who's good at sales. But I just want to
Yeah.
reflect that back because that's so important. I think we can, with all the masterminds we're a part of, it's easy to get distracted and be like, oh, am I supposed to be doing this over here? Rather than, no, this is where I'm so sharp. These are my superpowers. And you said in your
Yeah.
book, go ahead, please.
No, I just love that. I mean, I resonate with that so much. I call this like outsourcing your suck. I just don't, there are so many things that, yes, I could be doing in my business, but I just don't want to. So I will partner with people that, that can do that, or I'll hire people to do that thing. Cause Christine, the reality is, all I want to do is create content. All I want to do is be on social media. Like, yeah, it's an addiction. Let's call it what it is. But I love content creation. I've never burned out in 20 years. It's all I want to do. So I build businesses that allow me to be a content creator and go to speaking engagements and go to mastermind events and just be a extroverted social butterfly and create content that promotes all of my businesses. You know, it's important to let go of some of those things and lean into your power, your superpowers, and understanding like what is your thing that you are so much better at, that if you can just buy back your time. Great book, Dan Martell. If you can buy back your time by outsourcing that, or getting partnerships, like I will take less equity or less profit all day to free up my time to do more of what I love all day.
So good. And that's where we have to be so clear on our why and what constitutes success for each one of us. You know, I was having a one-to-one session with a founder earlier this week, and we were talking about what is your ideal? Who are you? What's your ideal in business, in family, you know, in every area of your life? Because otherwise we're going to end up getting to the end of our life and realize we were living in reaction versus being proactive. And then also living according to who everyone else says we should be or what their metrics of success are. So you said a section in your book, you're really diving into the why. What and how can people really kind of nail down, this is what matters to me, this is where I shine and how I shine?
Yeah, I think you have to do that through self-reflection, right? We prayed before this, which I am very thankful for. I think if you meditate on that, you pray on that, you self-reflect on what is it that brings you the most enjoyment. A great practical thing that you can do is a time inventory. And so from the moment that you wake up until the moment that you go to sleep, mark down every single task that you do. How much time that it takes you, what is the level of enjoyment that task brings you, and what is the ROI on that task. And you should also just, as a good practice, associate a dollar value with your time. How much is your time worth to you? however you want to calculate that is great. I calculate that of how much or potential revenue can I generate in an hour. And so if there's a task that brings me low enjoyment and less ROI than what I value my time at, I will try and find a solution for that so that I can do more of what is a higher level of enjoyment for me and what makes me the most amount of money. That's the best use of my time. And so if you just go through that, and really in this instance, pay attention to your level of enjoyment. What are the tasks that bring you the most enjoyment? That's
Yes.
what you should focus on. That's your why. That's what you're gonna figure out of like, oh, every time that I run or I do public speaking engagements, I get the most enjoyment out of it and the most ROI. And it's because I love teaching the things that I
Mhm.
learn and that I have applied. And so my why is that social media and digital marketing has changed my life, and I just want to provide the tips, tools, and strategies to help change other people's lives. And that is what I lean
Mm.
into. And so I free up as much time as I can so that all of my time, or as much as my time as possible, is focused on providing the tips, tools, and strategies to help change other people. Because that is
Well,
where I get the most personal enjoyment. And so that's how you can to find your why.
so good. And I love that what you love doing is part of the KPI there. Joe uh Joe Polish, an OG marketer. I
Hmm.
was at one of his events recently, and he calls it ELF, ELF, easy, lucrative, and fun.
Mm,
That's just like
love that.
a fun way to actually track it, and I love that. Measure what your time is worth and what you love
Yep.
doing and how much time you're spending on it. So I love that, and there's has to be a willingness to what you said of outsourcing it. Really just being
Hmm.
radically honest with yourself. Are you willing to look in the mirror and tell yourself the truth? And if we're not willing to do that, so often that can be our greatest demise. But
So
another
true.
question I have for you, I'm mindful of the time. Do you have another few minutes? This is an important question
Oh,
to
yeah,
consider.
yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. For you, Christine, we've got more time.
Stop it. Austin, my question, as you were talking, I just had this thought, so many of us, me included, all of us, man, we're producing so much content being on podcasts. And
Yeah.
now a lot of our content, it has no ending. And it doesn't really have a strong beginning. It's just like this little piece out of a 60-minute conversation.
Hmm.
And if we want it to be really good, we can't really use a lot of these AI tools because it has to, you kind of have to have that person included. No, you maybe for the first cut you can use the tool, but I have yet to experience the type of quality that can be produced as a human does. And then also, I just as you're talking about the framework, I'm like, wow, that final T, tell them the solution, is really missing, and also the lack of intentional content creation. So what's the
Mm.
balance and what's the mix of yours, which is content that's kind of reproduced from clips such as a video like this, versus you're sitting and creating new video content every week?
That's a great question. And I think if you're, how you're intentional with the structure of your podcast can really help you apply some of um, those practices in the repurposability for it. Is the goal to promote the podcast, to take sections out? Would that be your goal?
Well,
Or
I'm thinking more so actually when I'm guesting on other people's podcasts. So if I have my own podcast, obviously, if I'm interviewing people, there's a different dynamic versus I'm guesting on someone else's. So I guess that's a question for you and it comes down to like, what's your offer, right? But when you're having a dialogue on either
yeah.
who's hosting, who's guesting, it's just hard to include a CTA at the end of every single paragraph. But maybe that's actually a practice we should start including.
That is such a good question. I've honestly never thought about it. For clips, I mean, you could just riffing here, just going off the cuff. If you want to go in with the intention of following like the START framework as you're being interviewed on podcasts, I think a simple way to do this would the S would be start with the stop scroll to opening hook, right? That is as simple as just the question that's being asked. And so you could start
Yeah.
the clip off with either the interviewer asking the question or me restating the question. And that acts as the opening hook. And then for there, you can talk about a problem and be like, Christene, how I came to this conclusion is really because I was dealing with this problem, and then go into that problem, and then and then you could talk about a line, right? Like, just like I did earlier. Like if you asked me, like, basically, I answered your question earlier in the framework, right? Like, how does alignment? How have you personally dealt with alignment? And well, so Christene, how have I personally dealt with alignment? I struggled with getting sales in my business, and I had to personally overcome that. And here's 3 things that I did in order to resolve that problem. And then I just told people that you can go to my website, austinarmstrong.ai, if you wanted to schedule a call with me one-on-one. And like, that's a rough, like, off the cuff idea, but like, if you could structure everything. And now, like, if we were here, you asked, 15, 20 questions throughout a podcast interview. I'm not going to answer, like, say a call to action at the end of every answer. That's a little ridiculous. Right. But I mean, you could throw up a visual call to action, right? Like, if you're editing it afterward, you could throw up a, like, follow for more, or like, leave a comment if this resonated with you or whatever. Like, you could do a visual call to action.
That's good. And you can always take that one-time call to action because you're wearing the same clothes and just tag it at the end of everything else. So I love it. So
100%.
there's the visual, the written call to action. And then my team put together at the very end of the video just like a little wrap up where it has like what to do next, which I like. I thought that was a nice idea too. So there's, I guess, a few different ways, but I love this concept of training ourselves when we're on podcasts to be speaking more in reels. I heard Perry Belcher talked about this at one point, but like really training. And here's the other aspect of this that's challenging is that storytelling when you're live is very different than storytelling in a reel. People want to get to the point and they don't want the long drawn out, but when we're having a conversation or on stage, it's such a different training. And so I was working with one of our executives and really helping him create his keynote. But that's such different types of training than social media presence. We used to have with PR, I did more traditional media back in the day, and we would train people before going on TV. And so I actually think that there needs to be a social media training around how do you talk in sound bites, and practice it. And it's not just, I don't know. I just think my mind's kind of racing now on all these different ways of implementation because there is such different styles from being on TV, being on stage, being on podcasts, speaking in reels.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Cause a lot of the time it doesn't feel like, if it's repurposed, it doesn't feel like a complete thought. Right. And it's hard. It's hard to, it is a difficult balance, right? Because especially for like short form content, you really want to be, now it's like a little bit more flexible, like under 90 seconds, but for a long time, it was really like under 60 seconds. And that puts you in a difficult situation. Like, we're doing a 45-minute podcast here, 40-minute podcast, right? If I only gave you 1-minute answers to questions, it wouldn't be that interesting. It would be a very short show, right? So it's you got to have a balance of like, answering in a way that could be repurposed online, but not hurting the show that you're actually on in the process as well.
Yes, that's so interesting. And I've been curious about this too. I don't know. I don't actually know the answer to this, but I am curious if there was, if I was to start a podcast that's 15 minutes long, I send the questions in advance. And then you come on, and we're actually kind of doing this with our clients already, but I kind of like this as a show format. It's 15 minutes. Here are the questions. Let's boom, boom, boom. And you actually get through them so fast. And then, man, now you've got 15 different clips for that person that was a guest.
I actually love that idea, like flipping the whole concept on its head of like, the purpose of this podcast is to create short clips that go really viral. There's a quick example that comes to mind. This show. Now, funny enough, I've never actually watched or listened to an entire episode, but I only see their clips all the time. So there's a podcast called it's called The Makeshift Project, and it's these 2 guys, and they always have segments in their episodes that's like rank these top 5 or rank these 5 fast food items without knowing what comes next. And so it's like a delayed gratification of like, oh, what's going to be number 5 or what's on the whole list. Like I want to see what comes next. And then you also
Yeah.
internally think of like, where would I rank these things? Do I agree with their
Mhm.
ranking? And
I
so
love
everything is like this delayed little clip. And so I think that's something that podcasts should do, is having meaningful sections in the show. Like some people do rapid fire questions, right? Like that's a great
Mhm.
segment, but having a section or a segment in every single podcast that the whole purpose of it is to clip out for social.
Yes. And Austin, the way, man, there's just so much content. There's so many
Yeah,
podcasts. It's like, okay, we have to take this seriously if we actually want to have content that is meaningful, that drives impact, if we want to increase our followers, etc. We need to be so hyper intentional with that type of with
totally.
frameworks, you know. So using your
Yep.
framework, your book comes out December 1st. Where can people
Yes.
buy it? Amazon, where else?
Amazon.com. You got to
Yay.
get it and do this like silly. I don't know if you can see it. I'm
I
just
went, you need to watch back that. That was so funny.
well,
Oh my god.
I'm super lame. So I just anticipated a potential viral moment that everybody that gets the physical copy of the book can hold it
I
above their
love
face
that.
and take a picture like this. And
So fun. That is so fun. I love that. You're like giving people content by your book. It's so cool.
yeah.
So fun.
So
Maybe
yeah, it
I'll
comes
do.
out so. No, I'm
You said
excited for it. I spent over a year working on it. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon. Quick little tip: if you search for virality, add the exclamation point at the end, because Amazon currently likes to auto correct it to vitality. But if you
oh,
search for virality with an exclamation point or Austin Armstrong, you'll be able to find it.
nice. Yay. Well, super excited. Austin, thank you so much for the gift
Thank
of your time
you.
and everything you shared here. I could have gone on for hours, but I'm so grateful. Appreciate you, my
I
friend.
appreciate you, Christine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for tuning in.